Hi everyone.
Hi guys.
We wanted to just talk to you a little bit today about a really interesting subject in collaboration with Juan, who we love, from, how do you pronounce it?
Huelemo Mucho.
Huelemo Mucho. And it's a really good idea that we think just 4 fragrances, well not 4 fragrances, but some fragrances that got me into fragrances.
Yeah, which
made us Fragheads.
You know, I think they tell a bit of the story of why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah. The origins.
What turned us from people who, you know, have a signature scent or have a, you know, a scent rotation of 3 or 4 fragrances to, you know, crazy people who spend a ludicrous amount of money on fragrances. So you got 3 of us. You got Joe, you got me, and you got Juan. Joe.
So I'll start. Okay.
Tell us your story.
So I don't have everything here because some of these things are old, but basically I can remember vividly the first thing I ever wore, which was a bottle of my father's Aramis. And this was when I was about 10 years old, I want to say, because I was still a chorister at the time, and I went to play tennis with my mates. And I basically drowned myself in this Aramis thinking, wow, this stuff's really good. And I mean, back then it was probably more potent than the current stuff. I stank of it all day long. I played tennis in the summer, in the heat, stinking of Aramis, 10-year-old boy, weird. But it's beautiful, like leathery Chypre style thing by Bernard Chant, I think, who now makes, who doesn't make, but had made things like Aromatics Elixir and Aramis 900, if you ever want the sort of male counterpart of Aromatics. I wear Aromatics, I love it. So that's a really fond memory for me. I mean, the next thing I wore, again, can't get it nowadays so much, but the next thing I wore after that, probably Kouros, and I do actually have a bottle of Kouros here, but again, we can show you graphics up there. But I remember wearing that in the late 90s and absolutely loving it. I was really rocking that stuff. New Year's Eve, going into the year 2000, I wore that. I remember we had a big party at this church called St Jude's down in Gloucester Road. Kouros cloud all around me. But I think at the time I didn't really know much, not that I do now, I didn't know much about perfume. So I think, again, I used to think that the stuff that you wore was aftershave. So I think I purchased a bottle of aftershave rather than eau de toilette.
Yeah.
But it was still potent stuff. I remember it created this cloud. And I love that. Next, I mean, university, I wore lots of stuff. I was always seeking out things. I wore Bal de Serini from Hugo Boss. I went through a ton of Cerruti 1881 in my first and second years. Gucci Envy made quite an impact in my 4th year. I loved that stuff. I mean, I wore a ton of different things. What are those? Oh, is it Givenchy Gentleman in the big red bottle? Yeah. I love that. So yeah, a few things. I mean, the next big thing really was probably, I want to say, when not that I'm biggest fanboy in the world, but when I first became acquainted with Creed, and I thought, oh, there's this other side of perfume. I remember being in Harrods, and you know, maybe sort of, when was it? Maybe 2003, 2002, 2003.
So what age, so that's
22, 23. I was back in London for the holidays, and I used to go to Harrods all the time because I used to go to the Piano Kingdom, whatever it's called, Piano World, Toy Kingdom, Piano World, and I'd look at the perfumes. I was thinking, oh, this is interesting. Oh, I normally just buy this, but they've got all this weird and wacky stuff. Oh, wow. Creed Counter, which by then, those days was much bigger than it is now because they had Orange Spice, Royal Leather, the original Vetiver, all those guys, Bois de Cèdre, Alumina, Massier, all of those things which you can't find anymore. And I fell in love with, at the time, Bois de Portugal, and I do have a bottle of that here because I think you guys deserve to see a little bit of something. So I have that here, Bois de Portugal. It's far weaker than it was back in the day.
So what's this? How old is this bottle?
This is like 3 or 4 years old, and this, I mean, this is the 120 ml that they don't make anymore, sadly. But the reason this is important to me as a fragrance is because this is the first Creed I ever bought, and it was the time that I was first courting my lovely fiancée Martha, and so it has lots of happy memories. Let's give it a spritzer.
I love those 120ml bottles.
They're nice bottles, aren't they? I mean,
it's a shame
they're really good. So I mean, this, you know, it's just like the ultimate. Oh god, the spray is not great. It's There we go. It's the ultimate sort of classic barbershop-y green fougere thing.
Beautiful, beautiful, elegant stuff.
It is lovely, isn't it? I mean, it's not the kind of stuff they're making nowadays, but I still love that. 1985 was when that came out. So that, you know, that would be high on my list of sort of things that got me further into the world of fragrance. Green Irish Tweed as well, I have to say. Tuscan Leather from Tom Ford. And I look at them now and I sort of think of them in a really fond and thankful way, because they just got me down the rabbit hole. And now if you said, what do I love? It would be Ariege, it would be Prin, it would be 4160 Tuesdays, it would be, you know, Francesca Bianchi, Liz Moore's, all these things.
But
these
you only
are the
like
things
them because of these?
Yeah, exactly. These things kind of gave me a gateway away from what's on the shelves in Boots.
Yeah.
But we never lose sight of those things, and I still love all of those things. But I've got to thank these guys for just opening my nose and my eyes to that world. So yeah, they're the things that got me into being a fraghead. Yeah. As I have called myself now for maybe 20 years. So yeah.
I'm not surprised by anything you've mentioned. But especially I think, I remember your love of Green Irish Tweed and Tuscan Leather, which, you know, for me as well, I mean, they're such significant, exciting fragrances.
Totally.
And they're important that we, you know, it's easy for us to perhaps look down on fragrances like that.
Yeah, we shouldn't diss them because they got us, and they're still beautiful. I mean, that thing in its own right, as a smell, is still really pretty beautiful.
So elegant. Yeah. Yeah.
And they don't, I mean, this stuff now is lighter than it was as well. I mean, the stuff I was wearing in 2005, 6, it was big, it was really dark and rich stuff. And it's just got lighter and lighter and more wearable. But I'm hoping if I leave this out in the sun, it might start doing stuff.
Yeah, magic.
I hope, but I still love it. So there we go.
Okay, so next up, Juan, let's hear about your fragrances which made you a fraghead.
Hi Dan, hi Joe, thank you for inviting me to your channel. As you know, I am a huge fan of your channel. I love your take on fragrances and I love all your picks, and I don't ever miss one of your videos. So I'm so happy that we're doing another collaboration. And in this case, the fragrances that turned me into a fraghead, that has given me a lot of headaches, because I mean, there are so many, but finally I've come to choose just 5. So let me show them which they are. The first fragrance that started it all is Loewe Pour Homme. This is an eau de toilette. This fragrance, this bottle is 30 something years old. This is the first bottle my parents gave to me because my father used to wear this, and he's a person that has a very lucky skin, because whatever you smell on him, it smells phenomenal. So this one was a fragrance that when I was a kid I used to smell on him, and I was like, I want to have something on my skin that smells as good as this does smell on my father's skin. So when I was very small, my parents gave me this bottle, and they really made fun of me because they said like, wow, you're too small to have this beautiful bottle or whatever. But I was like, yeah, I need it in my life. And this is still the bottle. I still have the remains of the bottle. I've never wanted to end it, because this is a fragrance that is very close to my heart. And it did start it all. It started the craziness for perfumes. My parents did always know that I loved perfumes, and this one was my first sort of luxury bottle when I was very young. So this is Loewe Pour Homme. The second fragrance I have with me is Agua de Loewe, again from Loewe. I've always had like a very close relationship with Loewe, because probably it's because my father used to wear the eau de toilette from Loewe for man. And in this case, this is a fragrance that came out when I was in the early 20s. And it was the first unisex fragrance Loewe came out with. And my parents got this as a present from a friend, and my sister and myself as well. So I grabbed them both bottles and I said, okay, this one is for me. This is a fragrance that, even though it's unisex, I find it very attractive. It's very wearable, and this has been my signature scent for many, many, many years. This is a fragrance that I've worn day, night, no matter what. It always smells well, and for me, this is the most complimented fragrance ever. I mean, if I had to take note of how many compliments I've received on how well I smell, this one is up here, the second one is just down here. This is just so incredible how well it smells and how many compliments you get. It's citric, it's a bit greenish, it's just very, very elegant and attractive. It's so elegant, and I got so many compliments that my father got jealous, so he demanded this one, and now this is his signature scent, and that's why I had to let it go, because this one was mine, and now when I smell this, I smell like my father, and it's like, wow. So we have to thank my father for this, because otherwise I probably wouldn't have chosen to go to look for other fragrances. The third fragrance we're going to be talking about today is Scentric Molecule 01. This is the Molecule 01, and it was the first niche fragrance I ever bought. There was this peculiar store in Madrid where you had to go through certain rooms, and it was a mysterious, you had to go in with a password or things like that, and I found this fragrance, and they sold it to me as this is a pheromone fragrance, and so I bought it, you know, because I was very impressionable then and now so I smelled this and I was like, wow, this smells great or whatever, and this is so different. So I got this one, and it was a huge experience for me, because if you've ever tested this one, this is a fragrance that is very peculiar. It's pure ISO Super E, which is a potentiator of scent, and whenever you wear this, you smell like yourself but clean. And it's a fragrance that it depends on the amount of energy that you display. You're more people tend to smell you more or less. So there's a lot of people that cannot smell this one, and a lot of people that will. So it's a peculiar fragrance, it smells different, and at the same time it's a whole experience. So for me, I changed from a fragrance that you know what to expect to a fragrance that was different and a whole experience. So this one changed the game for me, and it made me look deeper into the niche world. The fourth fragrance I'm going to be talking about today was the most expensive one I bought, and that made me realize that I was a Fraghead, and it was Scandal by Roger Dove. This is the Parfum, and this is a fragrance that I love. It's a Fougère fragrance, as Agua de Loewe for man, but this one is probably, for me, is the best Fougère ever. If you look in the dictionary about Fougère, what Fougère is, of course, is a lavender, greenish, elegant sort of fragrance that was used by men 70s and 80s. This is the best Fougère fragrance ever for me. It's just phenomenal. So this is a fragrance that I discovered in London. I went into a store, and suddenly there was this new brand that was very hyped, and not a lot of people used to speak about, which was Creed, and there was this one very close by. So I smelled them both. I smelled Aventus and this one, and I just went crazy with Scandal. Scandal is one of my favorite fragrances ever. The way it smells, it really makes me just smile, and that is something that is fantastic. But the problem with this one is that nobody ever says anything to you. So you think you smell phenomenal, and indeed you do, but you don't get any compliments or anything. But still, whenever I wear this, I feel like, wow, I feel like $1 million. And still, a lot of years later, I still love it, and I am very glad I found it. And this is what opened my eyes to expensive niche perfumery. But so this is what opened my eyes to Roger Dove, and many others, of course. What can I say? And last but not least, I've got a fragrance that opened my eyes to a different world. When I was learning about niche perfumery, I did have some limitations. Of course, I've got plenty of limitations, but one of them was that there were some notes that I didn't like that much. The white flowers, I was not that much into white flowers, or the rose, that was not for me, because a lot of flowers of roses were picky and would hit on my stomach. But then again, also the oud I didn't like, because I had smelled it in a lot of commercial fragrances, and I was like, no, this is not for me, this is not what I like, whatever. And then I went to Rome with my wife in our honeymoon, and then I discovered this one. This is Serjov's Guarda al Oud. Guarda al Oud is an attar, so it is my first attar. This is a fragrance that made me discover a new world. Why? Because this one had everything I didn't like. It has white flowers, it's got rose, and it's got oud. And I smelled it, and I just discovered that there was something else. You could, if you looked enough, you would always find a lot of things that would really surprise you. So I was not that much into wood back then. I didn't like rose that much into masculine fragrances, and now I've just vanished all those limitations. I still have plenty of other limitations, but that I banished all those limitations, and I discovered that this one is a marvelous scent. And that's why I think this one is one that made me open my eyes to another level, to another world. And I am grateful to Sergio for creating this that made me go like Alice through the glass. Of course, I've discovered many other fragrances around, all along the years. You know, I have back here Nabucco, which you all know that is my favorite of all time. But this one probably is the one that opened my eyes and that I am grateful for. So these are my 5 fragrances that made me a Fraghead. I hope that you've liked my picks. And I thank you again for letting me participate in your channel, because I admire you a lot and I love doing collaborations with you. So Dan, Joe, it's a pleasure again. Talk to you soon. Adios, adios.
Hey.
So thank you, Juan, for letting us know your fragrances which made you a Fraghead.
Great things there.
Right. So it's my go now.
Okay, what have we got? This is exciting.
Okay. I actually had this conversation with Joe a few days ago, and he guessed everything.
I'm still very surprised.
And so some of you might guess it as well. So my first real fragrance memory of a fragrance I wore a lot is when I was at school. I guess about 14 years old, about the kind of age I started to care about what I was wearing, start to think about girls a bit, and girls, oh bloody hell, Jesus, and it was about that time that L'Odyssée by Issey Miyake came out, and Acqua di Gio. That was the time. Those were the really, the fragrances to wear. But they were too expensive. There was no way I could have afforded those at my age. And I remember, I can't exactly how I came, but I think it was just that my dad didn't like his bottle of Polo Green, and so he just gave it to me.
Beautiful.
And I remember thinking, oh my god, this is so cool. This is so sophisticated. I've got a proper aftershave. It was actually an eau de toilette sprayer, and I'm thinking, oh my god, this is amazing. And I remember going, thinking, so the highlight of my kind of pulling opportunity was choir practice on a Friday.
Oh yeah.
With mixed choir practice with the girls. And so
that's a great time
going 14 sprays of Polo Green. This bizarre 14-year-old choir boy, spraying 14 sprays of Polo Green. I remember doing it, and it's.
But that actually, looking back now, you probably laugh, but thinking about it, you were probably wearing one of the real, true, great oak moss beasts of its time. I mean, that stuff was full of pine and real oak moss.
Yeah, and it's always interesting to think
$top dollar for that now.
How that kind of maybe has informed and affected.
Yeah, totally.
My taste. So, and then my next. So I wore that for a while, and then I wore a few other things. The next fragrance I remember wearing regularly was Gucci Envy that I wore. It was one of those fragrances that when I was at university, for every birthday, for every Christmas, I always asked for another bottle. And it was the first time I guess I had a signature scent. I just wore it all the time.
Beautiful.
And actually, I've since our conversation, I think I've also realised that I got married quite soon after university, and so this is actually the fragrance that I wore for my wedding.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah, bloody hell. That's awesome.
I wore it all the time, and then we did a video of samples that Greggy Boy sent us. Yes. And he sent us a bit of Gucci Envy, which I hadn't smelt for ages, and it's quite emotional kind of going back. Yeah, it brings back all those memories, and it's amazing how it can transport you back to place.
I've got a little sample, I've not ever worn it. So I'll bring it, I'll give it to you.
I keep looking on eBay and think I should buy the bullet.
Do it, honestly.
The first expensive fragrance I bought was one that I've actually bought a few times. I think I must have been 23, 24, so a couple of years out of university, going down Jermyn Street, which is a street in central London where there were lots of tailors, and I'm thinking, right, I need to be more serious, more grown up. I need to get some
a top hat or something.
Yeah, a top hat and tails and a cane.
Awesome.
Yeah, and all that kind of stuff. And I went, and they've got some fragrance shops there. One of which is Floris, and I remember going there with my wife actually, and trying a few. And the one I bought, this I think is my third or fourth bottle, which is Santal from the House of Floris. And at the time, I think it's about 80 quid. And I'm thinking, oh my god, 80 quid.
That's insane.
That's insane. But I'm just gonna do it. And you know what? I still really love it. This is a fragrance I wore loads, and it smells elegant. It smells so classy.
Yeah, it really does.
I love it. I really it's a great.
So beautiful.
Especially if you've got like a summer wedding and wearing a suit.
Am I right in thinking this is maybe something that will never be out of your collection?
I think yes.
It has a sort of special.
I think
place.
It does have a special place, and this. I don't know if you can see this bottle is now quite empty. I do think I will replenish it. I don't have Polo Green or Envy, but I think I will replenish that one.
And there are lots of sort of pretenders that are thrown, aren't there? Like the aforementioned Creed, perhaps Penhaligons, all of these people. We've been making fragrances for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Floris
are real.
Have.
Yeah. They're the real deal.
And they have a raw
which is great.
warrant as well.
Yeah.
Or a warrant?
Yeah.
More warrant.
And I saw yesterday, in fact, they have a mouthwash. You can get a rose mouthwash. I mean, they have everything. They're really wonderful.
So
I love that stuff.
These are the fragrance memories. But for me, and I said this to Joe, there are two fragrances which turned me into a Fraghead, and these are. I mean, I loved wearing Santal, but it wasn't something that made me a kind of real fragrance addict. So my first time was I've mentioned this lots of times in this video, but I'll say it again. Was in this very loft, and Joe's the one who got me into this habit. Joe's the person who's cost me thousands and thousands of pounds, but. He sprayed me a load of things. I remember he had a few Tom Ford and Creed fragrances. And I thought, wow, God, these are amazing. And then he sprayed one fragrance on me, which made me think, oh my God, I've never smelled anything like this. It's so exotic. It's so transportative. It's so unlike anything else. It's so special. I've had lots of bottles of this, and this is definitely one I will never be without. It's Timbuktu from the House of L'Artisan Parfumeur by Bertrand Duchefort. It started, and then I got obsessed with Bertrand Duchefort. I looked him up and wanted to try all his fragrances. I didn't know the names of any perfumers before I tried this.
No, in fact, it sort of opened my eyes as well to that world.
But it's just
the individual is concerned,
and it still does it.
Yeah,
it's just magical stuff. It really kind of opened my mind to the world, and it's so sad that the new version, the black bottle, the Puig bottle, is not the same as this, which is really sad. But Timbuktu by L'Artisan Parfumeur.
It's really a gateway into the artistic things that can be done with fragrance, isn't it?
Completely
Mango,
different.
incense, vetiver, tropical, but at the same time serious, armchair, fresh yet dirty. Not dirty is the wrong word, but it's just
so much more
playful and everything else under the sun.
So that was something new and exciting. The other fragrance which got me interested in, I don't know, maybe the other side of perfumery, was something which connected me to the past. I'm just going to say what it is. It's Mouchoir de Monsieur from the House of Guerlain. So I've actually recently bought, when we went to Paris, I bought a new special bottle of this from the Champs-Élysées boutique in Guerlain.
Can we put a picture up of that?
Yeah, I'll
really
include it. It's a really lovely bottle, but I decided to buy this atomizer one. And this, I mean, I love the fragrance, and I adore the house. But one of the things which really excited me about it was the fact that it could connect you to the past.
16 years old.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Was it 1984? Yeah. And you can look at pictures of the past, you can read stories of the past, but something like this, to feel that you smell as people smelt of the past, I just thought it was such a vivid, amazing connection, and it felt so special. Smell-shul.
That's a great thing.
I think I made a word. Smell-shul.
Special smell. But it really does take you there, doesn't it? It transports you and it puts your imagination somewhere where it couldn't possibly be without.
And it just started.
Glorious.
It just started.
Glorious.
I then just fell in love with this house. I mean, I know there were lots of great old houses, but more than any other, it was this house that I really got excited about and obsessed with. And we've had, lots of fun exploring the history. But
I mean, this. this thing perhaps opened a gateway into another aspect of perfumery, which is this love that we have of vintage things, or nods to the vintage things of the past.
And so you get obsessed
really
with trying
fun.
to find the old bottles, the pre-formulation bottles, more than any Guerlain.
But it's a really special thing.
I just wanted to have a quick mention to another fragrance, which was almost my, these were the two fragrances, Timbuktu and Monsieur were the ones which really made me Fraghead. But there was another one which really took me down the rabbit hole. I remember people talking about this house and talking about this fragrance, and I got a little sample of it, and when I smelt it, I was just absolutely knocked on the floor by what it smelled like. And it was Ottoman Empire from the house of Aramis.
Oh my god!
And
this is still a holy grail, isn't it?
And to think that something, it just kind of redefined the boundaries in terms of opulence and richness and
it's
indulgence.
It's a game changer, isn't it?
And I'd seen things like oud and rose written on notes lists before, but when I smelt this, they just seemed to pale into complete insignificance, and it then got me obsessed with natural ingredients and trying to find out what oud was and what oud could be, and florals, and it led me down a rabbit hole and cost me lots of money.
But this is great stuff. You introduced me to this, Dan introduced me to this, and I think it's fair to say both of us from that moment on realised there was a whole other level going on in perfumery.
Yeah.
And that got us into the Bortnikovs and the Prin. And, the stuff that you're not going to just find in your high street, even in your niche perfume shops in your high street. Yeah. This is like another level away. Often it's to do with IFRA and that kind of thing as well, isn't it? Stuff that's maybe like off the beaten track, has a much smaller audience, is even more exclusive and special. But I mean, that thing is just remarkable. Yeah. If that doesn't turn you into a Fraghead nut job, I don't know what would, really. Amazing.
So, thank you so much, Juan, for joining us and sharing out your fragrances with us. We'd love to hear, I'm sure there are lots of people, if you can pinpoint one or two fragrances which, really turned you.
Tell us.
It'd be great to hear, because I'm sure, everybody's got a story, and maybe you still love it, maybe you don't, I don't know.
Or maybe something that you smelt when you were little and didn't know what it was for years, and then you found it and discovered, that's what I smelt when I was 3 years old that day at Christmas by my parents or whatever. Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's where a lot of our perfume love comes from, isn't it? When we're little.
So, until next time.
Bye.
Happy sniffing.